Edward S. Curtis's work, The North American Indian. And although he has a great body of work, really ethnographically comprised work, there was something that was infinitely wrong, and that was his purpose of showing them as a savage, as the noble savage, the idea of the noble savage. And so tonight we will continue to go down along that road of talking about photography and how it can either lead or mislead a viewer into believing what essentially they want it to believe. And so now I'm going to play a video.
We have an opportunity to ask questions.
Yeah.
My name is Nicole Tung, and this is Conflict.
The real conflict for me is the conflict between those who care and those who don't.
Miaka yangu kuna 2006.
Maombi Elizabeth was in her tent in a refugee camp.
Na wakati nilipataka hii shida tulikimbiaka.
She was in there with her husband and her 4-year-old daughter. Other 4 children were outside playing and she could hear them playing.
Wakatulingizia mule, ilikuwa wakati ya usiku.
And suddenly the noise stopped. A knife came through the ceiling of her tent and ripped it open. And in stepped 4 men. Her husband ran out the front of the tent. They put a gun to her child's head and then took turns raping Maombi. And as they left, they set the tent on fire. Neighbours came and were able to save Maombi, but her little daughter died. The last thing that little kid saw was her mother being raped. The world is a brutally unfair place, and I think that that sense of moral outrage has driven much of my work. My ideal voice in my photography is actually not my own, but my subjects. As much as possible, I would like their voices heard. I see myself as an intermediary between people who have been denied their human rights and an audience who I think have the power to stand up and try and make change happen. When war brings chaos, it also often brings sexual violence. In 2008, I saw an article that mentioned the numbers of women and children that had been raped in the conflict in Congo. It was in the hundreds of thousands. I couldn't believe that I hadn't heard about this before. I arrived at a hospital, and the first woman that I met recognized her rapist, and so he cut out her eyes. Within 2 minutes, I was starting to think, how do I tell her story? I met many women who were still suffering from the physical effect of the rape. But I also met many who, where the physical scars had healed, but the psychological scars remain. I think that many of them carry a deep, deep shame, and they carry that pain within them for the rest of their lives. I spent a year doing mental health work, then I did 4 months in Zimbabwe, the last month of which was in prison, over and over and over again. There's people with these horrendous experiences. In the Congo, many, many women that I met, their mothers were raped and their daughters were raped. Everywhere we'd go, there's another one, and then there's another one, and there's another one. It was just relentless. By the end of that period, I really felt like I needed to step away. I was struggling to have that real empathy because it had just become too much. It was walking away every time, documenting and walking away, knowing that the little kid that I photographed in the refugee camp in the Dub is still there, but the man I photographed in prison in South Sudan, he's still chained to the floor of that prison. And the people who I have walked away from, they were just still there. To the detriment of, I think, every other aspect of my life. It's very clear about why I'm getting up every morning and packing my bag and getting on that plane and doing that stuff. You know, we've all got stuff to deal with in our daily lives. We're consumed with our problems. So you don't want to take on somebody else's, right? My job is making it so that ignorance cannot be used as an alibi for inaction. What I hope a photograph can do is that people can see the person, and they can see their brother, their sister, their child in that photo. I want to make them witnesses, because I believe that with witnessing comes responsibility, and to witness suffering and not take action makes one complicit in their suffering. And I think that we're all complicit. Bringing light into the shadows of their lives is an aspiration. I don't think I'm there yet, but I think it's something that I have to pursue. My name is Robin Hammond, and this is Conflict.
So documenting social justice issues is something that we will talk about the entire night tonight, and the ethics behind documenting these issues, documenting humans and human dignity, and how to really encompass that, and how to really preserve human dignity while giving justice and shedding light, like he said, into the shadows of social justice. And so to begin, I'm going to start with what is a photograph. So photographic film is a strip or sheet of transparent plastic base coated on one side with a gelatin emulsion containing microscopically small light-sensitive silver halide crystals. The size and other characteristics of these crystals determine the sensitivity, contrast, and resolution of the film. But if you can believe it, the theory of what a photograph is a very debated topic. How many of you would agree that a photo is a snapshot? You can raise your hands. Or in other words, a freeze frame that documents the exact moment of the exact place with those exact people. That's a pretty good definition of what a photograph tends to do. Just like this example, you catch 4 people jumping in the air, in midair, that exact second. Those people, the people in the background, that car, the weather, everything. Does that mean that this accurately portrays the things that are being photographed, even if it is the exact moment, exact people, exact events, exact list?
No, because it's taken out of context.
Taken out of context? Anyone else? Everyone can pretty much agree with that. So it is taken out of context, and the question then becomes, where does the photographer fit into it? How does the photographer choose? And that goes back to the photographer's choice. And so, like I said, I've kind of coined this term, the photographer's choice, is the idea that the photographer chooses absolutely everything that is going to be recorded in that freeze frame, in that snapshot. And he chooses what he wants to include, the things he doesn't want to include, and how those things in that image all play together, the emotions that are elicited from the people and things like that. And he chooses everything. The photographer chooses everything. And because of this, the photographer has a lot of power. The ability to express in pixels and not words an emotion or an event. But with this power also comes the ability to misuse and mislead. Let me give you an example of this. The Great Depression era photographer Dorothea Lange produces many photographs that capture the helplessness and depression era of the people that her photographs represent, like these two. In this photograph taken in 1939 titled Mother and Baby, a Family on the Road, this photograph is an iconic piece of art that still holds lasting resonance even today. But what you didn't see is the choice the photographer made. This photograph was taken minutes later. The father wiped the baby's face, and as you can see, they both clean up pretty well. And obviously, these two photographs, photographing the exact same people, exact same thing, exact same place, are drastically different. And it's all because of the photographer's choice on how she wants to portray these two individuals. Neither one of these photographs may be a 100% accurate portrayal of circumstance, but we can see a truthful view into how the photographer saw things, which in turn allowed her to act accordingly and take these photographs. A quote that rings true even more so today than ever before is from Lawrence Levine, who made the point that people are never simply defined by their suffering, even in the worst of circumstances. It does make you wonder why, as a country or even as a human race, we tend to gravitate towards those photographs that solely encapsulate the suffering of others, leaving no room for any other story to be told. Much like the video we saw, those people are experiencing great suffering, mass rape, mass murder, beheadings, torture, being burned, and that's really all we see. Those are the photographs that we see. We don't see them being happy, essentially. And what Lawrence is trying to say is that we can't just define a people or even a single person based on their suffering alone. That there needs to be a fuller and larger story that encapsulates everything about them in order to be truthful to their story. And so, everyone's heard that a photograph is worth 1,000 words, but it's the photographer's job to choose the combination of those words to describe the scene. You can see here these photographs from Russell Lee. He takes a photograph of a man who has been severely beaten in a nasty bar fight. That same night, he goes and takes these photographs that drastically have a different feel, texture, and context, often said of a romanticized look at the exact same bar where someone, probably got his face beat in and his eye popped out. And so, what sadly gets forgotten are the other movements in the Depression era. You hear about the suffering, the starvation, the great things that the people were going through at the time, but what you don't also see and what you don't often remember are these great movements and moments in music history where big band was coming to start coming alive, and these photographs are not as iconic as those that depict the Depression as a suffrage of people, of regular families sitting out on in their car at the food bank waiting every month to just get food. And it's important to document injustice, but much like everything, it's also equally important to have a full documentation to reach a full understanding as possible. Because as you can see, even just looking at the Depression pictures and these music movement pictures, each one gives a very different view, even though they were taken in the exact same year, exact same settings, exact same people that were living in that time. And so going back to the power that photographers have to portray things, I want to give these as an example. It's a gradient of Samuel L. Jackson. I almost said Michael Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson. So when you think of Samuel L. Jackson, you think of this man, snakes on a plane. You think of this very angry person, kind of, one could say maybe a badass, someone who won't take any crap from anyone, and just kind of a tough, angry dude. But as you can see, a photographer has a choice to define Samuel as a person. So the photographer, by eliciting emotions out of their subjects, you can manipulate the photograph, capturing said exact moment, place, and person. The photographers choose to portray Samuel L. Jackson laughing as one that is calculated and is looking to pull a certain effect from the audience. And this is often something that you wouldn't recognize Samuel L. Jackson as someone who's laughing all the time and things like that. And so it's the photographer's choice to be able to pull that out from their subjects and elicit that exact emotion. And that is a very important choice and a very conscious choice that photographers make. At the beginning of photography, everyone saw the importance of documenting everyone, the importance of the portrait. The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard prophesied about the exploding popular art of photography decades ago. He said with the daguerreotype, everyone will be able to have their portraits taken. Formerly, it was only as prominent, and at the same time, everything is being done to make us look exactly the same. So we shall only need one portrait. What Kierkegaard warns us of is what we will inevitably be the impact of photography to come, or some would call our fate. And so at the bottom line, from its inception, people have seen photography as the tool to document things that will slowly and quickly be forgotten. Take these for example. In many cases, a photograph is the only thing you have to remember somebody by. And if you did not read it from my flyer, these children are dead. Yes, in the present day dead, but also during these photographs, they were dead. Well, actually, the one on the left is dead. The one on the right is not. But as you can see, people would take photographs. Circled on the outline is the stand that would photograph dead people. And that was the only way that they were able to encompass and capture somebody's essence and someone who will be forgotten. And for a lot of young children that died too early, the parents want something to remember them by. And so they will prop them up, just like the last photograph, with a stand, a stick behind them, propping them up, making them look alive. They have pins in their eyelids, and often you'll see them, if they're gripping a table or a chair, it's because their rigor mortis has set in and their hands have clenched, so they give them something to hold. Sometimes you'll see them holding a rosary, sometimes you'll see them holding a chair. And it's often creepiest when, like the first photograph, they're twins, and one is dead and one is not. And you can see that they're holding hands, and one has kind of a claw and the other looks alive. So it's very interesting to see a rise in the importance of documenting events and people. But parallel, there is a rise to manufacture and fabricate the truth to give off a certain illusion. Then, of course, you begin to ask yourself, do the ends justify the means? Does the end of propping a dead guy up just so that he looks alive to take a photograph, does that justify fake way of documenting someone who is portrayed to be alive? Two great examples of this is the late great Lincoln and the still great Oprah. So one's face was placed on a more stoic and noble body, while the other one was placed on a sexier, more toned body. And I'll let you decide which one was which, but these Photoshop techniques are widespread now, with the medium transitioned into a digital format, and manipulating like these have been around since the dawn of photography. And nobody and nobody, no matter what, how important, can escape editing can escape Photoshop, and just like Lincoln and Oprah, everyone has things that they can quote unquote